And Michael, this is a little off track, but why is it that not just the people in prison, and this is a question I'm just curious, you get so many people in jail, especially in jail, that turn their life over to Christ. Do you think it's because that's the only way to keep sane, or is they just feel, okay, I can't have relationships, I'm in jail forever, and they become born again? Do you think all of the time it's legitimate, or they're just doing it to just do it? I don't know if that, does that make sense, my question?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, and I get asked that all the time because obviously, I came to Christ in a prison experience, and obviously it was genuine for me. For me, the darkness was...
All right, hi, this is Chazz Palminteri,
The Wise, and I'm Michael Franzese.
the wise guy. So
we
tell
are.
us, you got a great story. You got to tell me.
Yeah, it's been a while, since we got together.
That's right, yes.
Been busy, been traveling. I got here to, Atlantic City and then New York, and it's been raining for 4 days.
Yes,
And now I'm going home and the sun is shining.
and it's always that way,
Yeah,
Michael.
but it's okay.
It's always that way.
But we had a good time. It was busy, but I always love coming back here.
Well, thank you.
Chazz. I mean it. And, even being on stage in front of... it always feels like my people back here.
Yes.
It's a different feeling.
It's a different feeling. New York is a different feeling.
It really
is. We do places, not slighting any places in the Midwest, and it's great. Yeah. People love it. But when you come back here, you go, all right, I could only live in New York or some kind of East Coast place
Well, it's home. Even the people that you don't know, you feel like you know them.
You know them.
So it's always a nice feeling.
That's right.
And I had a really incredible experience.
I know.
I have to say, I went into the prison to see David Berkowitz, Son of Sam.
Son of Sam.
Yeah.
Wow.
How that came about. Very dear friend of mine who was a pastor at one time, but now he's got his PhD, medical doctorate, I forget what, a clinical psychologist, something like that. And I've been talking to him. He wrote an incredible book about the whole David Berkowitz experience, but he wrote it from the mental illness standpoint. He spent about 100 hours with David, 34 different sessions. And during the conversation, David happened to mention my name. He said he read my book. He got it out of the prison library in 1988. No, I'm sorry. 1980, something like that. Anyway, a long time ago. And they were talking about me, and, he asked me to come in and visit him. And that's how it happened. So I had to go through the whole prison process of getting approved.
Wow.
The state prison, a whole bit. Finally, they approved me. And then I said, I would love to get him on camera, talk to him. So they allowed me to go in with a camera, and we sat down for almost 2 hours. And I got to tell you, obviously, let's set it up, Chazz, because we were both around during that time.
Oh, yeah, 1977.
Yes, 76, 77.
76, 77, yeah.
But set it up from your perspective, because I don't think people understand. He was a serial killer that captured the attention of the entire world.
The world, but especially in New York.
Yes.
The 5 boroughs.
Yes.
Because we were fat. I mean, what did he kill? 8 people? I think something like that.
I think it was 7 victims altogether. Not all of them died. I think 4 or 5 of them died. Whatever. But
yes, the fascinating thing about that time was, somebody would get attacked, they would die or be critically injured, and then nobody knew what was going on. It was like, are the police powerless? They can't do anything. If you were with a girl in a car and you were parked somewhere, you could be toast. That's it. Exactly. This guy, he would just go to places, lovers lanes, or just he would travel and see people parked. You would drop it off your girlfriend in front of your house. He would kill you.
Yeah.
He would do it from far away. I remember he had a 44 special. Mm-hmm. 44? I think it was a 44 special. Not a 44 Magnum. 44 special. I remember that. Mm-hmm. Snub nose. And I'm telling you, the fear... Well, we lived there. The fear. I would be I had a date. I would say, look, I can't drop you off at the house. If I drop you off, get out of the car and go. Yeah. I mean, it was literally everybody in the tri-state area was scared. When I stopped for gas, I was scared. It was insane. Yeah. Oh, he's only attacking blondes. Oh, now he killed the brunette. Oh, he killed the guy. Oh, he killed a guy and a girl. It was, folks... I mean, he paralyzed the city.
Yeah, and you're right. They were trying to establish a pattern in the murders, but they really couldn't.
They couldn't.
And he could have came out of nowhere. I'll tell you how serious it was that the NYPD came to us guys on the street and they said, help us in any way you can. If you spot this guy, you see this guy, whatever.
Right.
And we actually had an experience in Queens. A couple of my guys had told me that they thought they spotted him or they had a line on him.
Right.
We didn't,
Right.
We tried to, to follow it up. But shortly after that, I think his last victim was in Queens. So it happened, but we missed it. But that's how paranoid everybody was. Even the police were asking for help, and he spent 4 years in the military. He was in the military.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He was a pretty good shot.
Yeah. He spent 4 years in the military. He and this is where he got his training, So, but yeah, just so people understand, and this was the whole world was intrigued by this. Not only in New York, Brooklyn, Queens, that was his area, but the whole world. Son of Sam.
Son of Sam. You know what's amazing? That's why it's so hard to do this now because there's so many cameras.
Yeah.
Back then, there was no cameras.
No cameras on the street.
I mean, he would have been caught right away now.
Yes.
Because houses have cameras. They see a car go by. They check the car. But back then, he would... did he say to you, Michael, how he picked his victims?
Yeah, they were random. There was nothing personal about it. Nothing personal at all. I got to tell you, now that I got into his head and kind of his psyche and everything else, it was obviously... scary in the sense that you knew what he had done, and you're talking to the guy that pulled this off. And look, that's me, like a guy who knew Roy DeMeo and Greg Scarpa and all of that. But, I guess because it was a different relationship I had with them. But to sit down with this fella, and, when he walked in, it was kind of sad because he's old, prison life, 40 years he's away now. And, he got old, let's say. And but we sat down, and when we started it off, he said something to me that kind of set the table. And he said, Michael, I want to tell you something. I make no excuses for what I did. I take full responsibility, 100%. He said, I'm spending the rest of my life in prison because that's where I deserve to be. He said, but I just like to explain to people because to me it was mental illness that I had. He said, it's not an excuse. Doesn't matter. I still did what I did was wrong. He came right out front and did it. Now, I'm a street guy, so I'm evaluating him. Okay, is this guy trying to, get on my good side, trying to set me up for whatever? But after the hour and a half, I really believed him. I believed what he was saying. And I'll tell you how it became even more real to me. The mother of one of the victims, her name was Moskowitz, like I mentioned, she started communicating with him and saw that he was so sincere that she forgave him for killing her daughter. Now, he tells me that. I said, okay. But then he showed me a series of letters written by her in her handwriting. And the letters got me emotional, the way she was communicating with him over this. And, David, we can do things together. We have to show forgiveness in the world. And, I know there was a mental illness situation with you. So it was really, I said, okay, this guy's for real. And, he's a person of faith. He turned to Christ now. He's a Christian. And so it was fascinating. And, in speaking to him, I didn't want to really get into the details of the crimes. And you saw how uncomfortable it was for him to talk about it.
Well, but I want to ask you, Michael, he says it was mental illness. So people go, you don't really know, if you know you're crazy, you're not crazy. But if you just met him on the street and you talk with him, would you think something was wrong?
No, and this is I wanted to lay this out to you and get your opinion, because here's what happens. He's 5 years old. He's got a great mother and father, right? Yeah. Loving home, everything else. At 5 years old, they sit him down and they tell him, we have to tell you something. You were adopted. You're not really our child. And they said, and your mother died at birth having you. Your father didn't want to have you, so he gave you up. He couldn't.
You tell him that at 5?
5 years old.
I mean, it's a little young.
5 years old. And I'm saying to myself, why would you tell a kid at 5 years old? I got 7 kids. I wouldn't even think of that. But here's what happened to him. I said, well, how did that impact you? He says, well, I was very confused. He said, and then I started thinking, my mother died at birth. Did I cause my mother to die? Was I kicking her in the womb? Did I do something to cause her to die?
Wow.
He said, and that kept playing on my head for a long time. He says, and look, I wasn't an easy kid. I was always on the go. He said, I had behavioral problems from the time I was a child. He said, but that really did something to me. And then a few years after that, the parents sit him down again. Now remember, these are loving parents. The parents sit him down again and say, well, your mother didn't really die at birth. She's really still alive. So now he's more confused, and I want to meet my mother. Do I have brothers and sisters? What's the deal with my father? So at some point in time, he meets his real mother, who was in her 40s when he was born. And he strikes up a good relationship with his real mother. All his relationships were good. His relationship with his adopted parents was good. His father was supportive of him until his father passed away, would visit him in prison and everything else. His adopted father. Right. His real father, he went and visited, nice guy, but, you know, they didn't really get that close. Right. But he got fairly close with his real mother, too. And then he had a sister from his real mother. But all these relationships were good. They weren't bad.
Was there any mental illness in his family?
No. No, he didn't talk about that. But he just said, you know, Michael, he said, I had something in me. I always wanted to be in the dark. He said, I would go underneath my bed and lay in the darkness underneath my bed. He said, for hours. He said, I like to be alone. But then he showed me pictures. He played on a baseball team, right? He showed me pictures that with his friends. And I'm trying to figure this out. I'm saying, what was it in the life that made him just lose it like that? So we're talking, we're trying to get in sequence. And then finally he says, you know, I got mixed up with the wrong crowd. They were a bunch of Satanists.
Okay.
Yes.
There you go.
And so I looked at him, I said, so are you blaming the Satanists? He said, no. He said, I got involved with them. He said, but my head started going crazy.
This was Satanist back in the 70s.
Yeah.
How old was he when he got mixed up with them, did he say?
In his 20s. Now, what happened was right out of high school, he enlisted in the Army. So he went right in. He did 4 years there. When he got out, he said he tried to come back to the neighborhood. He was in the Bronx, where he grew up. And he said the Bronx had changed. He was in a tenement now. Some of his old friends were there. Some of them have moved out.
Co-op City he moved to.
Co-op City. Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Exactly. But honestly, Chazz, throughout the whole 2 hours, I couldn't put my finger on it and say, aha, this is what did it. The Satanists obviously had an impact on him, but there was some point in time where he just sprung and said, I got to start killing people.
How was he? Did he like animals?
No,
I was just curious.
Remember he had said that his dog was talking to him.
Right.
But he debunked that later on. He said that just came into his head, and that wasn't true.
That wasn't true.
No.
So he did say it to the Lord.
he did say it. He did say it. I think that's why they called him Son of Sam at some point.
The dog's name was Sam?
Yeah.
Or something?
But he said, Michael, I had the devil in me. There's no doubt about it. You know, and now as a Christian, he's saying that because he said, what happened to me was demonic. Demonic, he said, it's hard for me to explain. You know, normally you would think somebody could say, this incident happened and this caused me to have anger and I went out and I started killing people. But he didn't have that. You know, so again, it's hard to figure out. I mean,
yeah, he's like a hard one to figure out.
It's hard because there were great parents. Even his adoptive parents were great. When he met his mother was great. He had a relationship with his sister who was great.
Did he have relationships with women?
No. He didn't talk about a woman at all.
So he never really had a girlfriend?
No. Well, at least not that he mentioned. No. Never had a girlfriend. And I said to him, in any of these tragic situations, was anything personal? He said, no. Not at all.
He never felt remorse?
Oh, now he feels real remorse.
But not then.
He kept saying, I'm going to get caught. He almost wanted to get caught. You know, he was at one point he was upset that he didn't get caught. You know, so because he said, look, I knew it was going to come to an end. It just didn't come quick enough.
Like I knew when he got caught. I remember the newspapers when they were bringing him in. He had like a smile on his face.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah,
and it was almost like I was looking at him like he was famous, and I think he was happy. I know that was my take on it. I could be.
He was
wrong.
happy to get caught. He said it.
He was happy to get caught
because he did not enjoy what he was doing. He felt, that he was driven. As a matter of fact, I'll pick it up. Something maybe we can read and review. It's not. Book will probably be out very shortly.
Yeah.
It's called Monster Mirror, written by that good friend of mine, Mike Caparelli, who spent all that time with him. But it's if you want to understand the mental health issue, I think you get a good explanation out of this, using him as kind of the subject.
Did they ever do a movie, Son of Sam?
Yeah, it was a TV movie.
It was a TV movie.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a television movie way back when. But it's fascinating, and I'm going to obviously.
And Michael, this is a little off track, but why? I mean, you're a man of Christ. Why is it that not just the people in prison, and this is a question I'm just curious, you get so many people in jail, especially in jail, that turn their life over to Christ? Do you think it's because that's the only way to keep sane, or is they just feel, okay, I can't have relationships, I'm in jail forever, and they become born again? Do you think all of the time it's legitimate, or they're just doing it to just do it? I don't know. Does that make sense, my question?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, and I get asked that all the time because obviously, I came to Christ in a prison experience, and obviously it was genuine for me.
Yeah.
For me, the darkness was they threw me in a hole, took everything from me, said, you'll never get out of prison alive again. You'll never see the street again. My wife told her the same thing, a breakdown. I'm 41 years old. I'm saying, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in this place. And so it was a very dark moment for me. And then prison guard just happened to hand me a Bible, and things started from there with me.
He just said, here, read this.
No, well, what happened, Chazz, he opened I got in that night, L.A. County,
right?
Not L.A. County, L.A. Federal Jail. They're going to transport me back to Brooklyn in the morning. And he must have seen me when I came in. I was shot. It was a bad day. And he comes by my cell and opens the flap a couple hours later, and he said, are you okay? You didn't look good coming in. I said, get away from me, man. Don't bother me. I don't want to see any of you guys tonight. I told him just like that. And he left, and he came back maybe 2 minutes later, and he pushes a Bible through the slot on the door. And that's when I picked it up and things started for me. And I spent 29 months and 7 days studying the Bible because I wanted to know the truth. I wanted evidence. I didn't want to just read the Bible, because I thought it was never coming out again.
Did you, when he gave it to you, did you immediately start reading it, or you waited?
No, I picked it up and threw it against the wall.
So you didn't start reading it right away?
I slammed it against the wall. But then I said, hey, you know what? My thinking, there's only me and God in this cell. I got nothing but enemies. I don't need God to be my enemy. That's my thought process,
Wow.
right? And so I started, it opens up to the book of Proverbs, and I start reading, and then 2 verses catch me, and that's my journey started. But what happened to me, I challenged God that night. I said, no. I trusted my Father, look where I am. I took a blood oath, look where I am. I said, I can't do this with you. Prove it to me. And then my journey started. I had my wife send me in over 400 books on every faith. I studied. So my faith came from a real investigation. And I tell people all the time, I'm not perfect in any way, believe me, but my belief is perfect. Nobody can change my mind.
Right.
And, look, I look at it this way, Chazz, there's a heaven and a hell. And being in that cell, I tell people all the time, being in that cell
Right.
gave me a healthy fear of hell. Because I said, if hell is like this, never ending, separated from everyone I love, but 1,000 times worse, I don't want any part of it. So I need to figure out what happens when my life is over. And so I want to study Buddhism. I want to study Judaism. I want to study Catholicism and Christianity. And that's what I did. And for me, Christianity wins hands down. So saying this, do you always have a statement, born again until you're out again? And it's a stupid statement.
Born again until you're out of prison.
Yeah, until you're out again.
Okay.
But it's a stupid statement because I could have been a Christian. I could have had Jesus on my shoulder. I wasn't making parole any quicker. They don't treat you any different. It doesn't matter. You're not fooling anybody. But I've watched so many people in prison who have made conversions that are so genuine. Chad, I went to Angola prison.
Yeah,
one of the worst in the country.
The worst.
Louisiana.
That's a rough one, boy.
Everybody in that prison, in there for 30, 40 years, never coming home. The Christians that I spoke to, Billy Graham used to go in there, so at peace. You would have thought they were living in your backyard, so as opposed to everybody else. They were at peace. So I believed 100% that his conversion, his transformation in there was due to his faith. And that's what he told me. He said, Michael, I have peace with where I'm going when I leave here. I believe I've been forgiven. He said, the proof to me was that this woman, Moskowitz, was able to forgive me. And if she forgives me, I know God has forgiven me. And he now he's a pastor in there practically. He has Bible studies. He brings people along. It's genuine. And because of my own transformation, I believe it's the same in his. And again,
Right.
I'm never coming home. I go to the parole board just to be courteous. I deserve to be here in life. I took life and I deserve to give mine. Totally at peace with it.
Did you ever meet anybody in prison, Michael, who just won't read the Bible and says, I am what I am, that's it?
Many people.
Many
like
people.
that. Yeah. Franzese, you're losing your mind? I said, no, I found my mind. I said,
Right.
you lost yours, but and I get the same thing now. I have some, look, I have to tell you this, people, don't get insulted because many of you, I love you. I have a lot of followers, so does Chazz, we have on this channel. But I believe that, I'll say it again, social media has exposed the lunacy in the world.
Yes.
And we get that from comments that we get.
Right.
People out there saying all the time, well, Michael, you're tax-free. You're using the church to make money. I want to make this clear. I pay my taxes. I don't have a foundation. I'm not a 501c3. I work for a living. That's it. So, but everybody says I use the religion to make money. Not everybody. There's a couple of people on there, which they have a right to say what they want, but they're wrong. They have no investigation. They just say it.
Right.
But what was my point in saying that? What was the question?
My question was, now I forgot my question. No, I think, no, my question was, do you get people who don't care about, they say, Michael, I want to be born again. I am who I am, and this is it.
Yeah, I mean, allegedly, I don't know, John Gotti said that. Yeah, he said that. That was a statement that I read a couple of times.
There's a story about John Gotti that was told to me, and I didn't know John Gotti at all. Let me clarify that. I didn't. But someone who knows him better than anyone, and I won't say his name, told me, and he was at my home, in fact, and he said that when he was dying on his last, he was going to die any minute.
Right.
A priest came in, and the guy leaned over and said, listen, there's a priest here. And John just went like this.
I heard the same thing.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, and
he just went like you waved them off.
I was
wow.
I was speaking in Springfield, where the prison hospital was, where John died, and one of his nurses came to hear me speak.
Right.
She had to get permission from the Bureau of Prisons to come in.
Right.
And then I sat with her because she was around Tony Salerno and everybody. She was there forever.
Yeah.
And she told me pretty much the same thing about John. Yeah.
That he flicked it with his hand. He went like,
part of it. Yeah.
Get him out.
Sad.
Wow.
But
here's the insane logic in that. When the guy told me the story, instead of saying what you just said he went, that's a man. And I went like this. I went, yeah. And like, wow. He stood what he believed, and this was it. That's a man. And I'm like,
even when you're wrong?
Even when you're wrong, all right, but.
Well, to further that mentality, and I've said this before, one of my very serious discussions with my dad, my mom passed away. They wouldn't let him out. We tried to get him out to go to the funeral. No. So I go in and visit him. He was inside, obviously. And they put me in a private room, the lawyer's room, because I was going to speak to my father about my mother's death. And we were into a discussion and this and that. And he said, these rats, they don't even let me out. We're married all these years and blah, 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 right? And we got into discussion. I remember how it came about, but I said something that kind of triggered something in him, And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, Dad, you got to take responsibility. I said, our family was destroyed. And you played a big part in that. Not intentionally.
Yes.
Oh, he got so... What do you mean by that? I said, well, Dad, you were away all of these years. My sister dies of an overdose of drugs. My mother's half nutty. My brother's 25 years a drug addict. My younger sister, Tina, was never all there. She dies at 41. I said, the family's destroyed. You have to take some responsibility. Because he was saying some things about my mother. And he said, why am I responsible? I was framed on this case. I'm in jail for a crime I didn't commit. I said, absolutely. I'll take that to my grave. You were framed.
Right.
I said, but Dad, you weren't framed because you were a doctor, a lawyer, or a priest.
Right.
You're framed because we're street guys, we're mob guys, we're criminals.
But what about all the things you didn't get caught in?
I know. And he got very, it's not my fault. I said, Dad, you got to take responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, come on. You know.
So when you spoke to him, you were born again.
Yeah.
And how did he feel about that?
At first, you know, it's funny. I don't see him for 10 years.
10 years.
Well, I didn't see him for 10 years after I walked away and all this talk on the street, you're a rat, you're going to snitch, you're going to do all of that. Well, after all of that subsided and nobody goes to jail because of me, he sends for me. He said, I want to see you. He was out on parole. I said, okay. He said, I'll meet you in such and such a place. I said, no, I'll meet you at your house. That's where I wanted to meet. Honestly, I didn't trust anybody. I said, I'll meet you at the house.
This is your father?
Yeah. It wasn't so much him, but, you know.
Yeah.
Look,
you weren't going to meet him
yeah.
in some, you know.
He said, well, we're both on parole. I said, Dad, I know how to shake the law. Don't worry about it, right? So I meet him at his house at 5:30 in the morning, Chazz, right? Door opens. Walk in. He's standing there like this. I'll never forget. First words. If you'd have listened to me, you'd have been the boss of the Colombo family. First words after 10 years. And
That's his first words?
First words.
Wow, he's hardcore, Michael.
And you know what I said to him?
What?
I said, Dad, are you in a twilight zone? I says, don't you understand what's happening in the past 10 years? He looked at me, he said, this Bible stuff is all real? I said, yeah, it's real. I said, I serve a different master now. That's what I told him. He said, all right, come on and we'll talk. And that's kind of what broke the ice. And then he started, you know, you didn't have to do it this way. You could have told me. And we had this whole discussion. I said, Dad, our family was destroyed. I meet this young girl. You think I'm going to destroy her life? And then we got into the discussion. I said, I had to make a choice. And, you know, I will tell you this, and people might get upset, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Okay, you know what my dad used to say to me? Me and him just talking, because when things happened, when he was a captain and they broke him, and I was so mad, you know, and they said they broke him because they want to protect him because he kept getting violated on his parole, stuff like that, you know. He says to me, you know this life is full of shit, right? He said, you know that, right? He said it to me. He said that to me 100 times. That doesn't mean he would, but he wouldn't violate it, and he wouldn't, not because his legacy in that life was more important to him than anything, Chazz.
His legacy.
His legacy. He wanted to be the last man standing, never said a word to the police. That was his legacy. But I'm in my mind, and please, people understand, I'm not knocking my dad. I love him. I understand his principles, strong man, yes, a soldier in this life. But I'm saying, but our whole family was destroyed, Dad. That's your legacy. But he didn't get it that way. He didn't see it that way. So, and it's sad, you know, because it's really the wrong way to think. You can't destroy your family for anything, you know.
So he never turned to God?
You know, I think he did, because I found it very difficult to try to talk to him about it. But here's what happened. I did a big event once, and there was a chaplain there, a woman that came to see me. Afterwards, she said, I'm very fascinated by the story of you and your dad. She said, is he a Christian? I said, no. I said, he grew up Catholic. He believes in God. She said, can I go and see him? I said, yeah, I'd love for you to go and see him. So I said, you're going to have a hard time getting in. She was very aggressive. She says, let me do it. Let me worry about that. So she gets in to go to see him. She spends 3 hours with him. Here's what happened. She says, Michael, I walked in the door. He didn't know she was coming. And she says, I'm a chaplain. And he said the first words out of her mouth is, oh, my son is a priest. No, I wasn't a priest, but instead of him being like ashamed, he said it with pride, you know? And then she said she spent 3 hours with him reading the Bible, and he accepted Christ. Now, I didn't see that in him.
This was before he died?
Oh, yeah, this was 10 years before he died, because I kept trying to...
But he wouldn't tell you about it?
No, he wouldn't talk with me, but now... I don't think she had any reason to lie to me.
Why would, she wouldn't lie about
why
that.
would she lie to me? She said she got him to accept Christ. Now, again, I didn't see much evidence of that afterwards, or all the time I spent with him afterwards. But
I think it was just him about more making sure that his legacy in the mob
that was it.
Was the way it is.
Yes.
Michael, that is just an unbelievable story. Wow. that was, I got to tell you, folks, that's why you tune into us. You get what it's about. I mean, that's coming. And we've done many interviews together, and I don't know where we got onto that from the Son of Sam, but that was wonderful. And this is the end of our show, and I just want to tell people, listen, where are you going to get content like this? Where? This is like two guys who talk the talk but walk the walk. Okay, so Michael, you want to say anything before we sign off?
Chazz, and I don't just speak like that. It's just something because we have that relationship between us where we could just talk.
We just talk,
and hopefully people are inspired, motivated, learn a little bit, entertained a little bit. But hey, two guys from Brooklyn and the Bronx.
Two guys from Brooklyn and the Bronx. All right, this is Chazz Palminteri,
the Wise, and I'm Michael Franzese,
the Wise Guy.
And we'll see you next time.